Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast where normal service is back and resumes. If you're listening for the very, very first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're of course on X, we're on Instagram, Facebook and Blue Sky too. I'm joined by three of our returning regular guests that are going to guide and steer you through to what is being billed as one of two big weeks in Tottenham Hotspur's season. Will Spurs, of course, advance in their Europa League RO16 tie to come against AZ Alkmaar over the course of the next week or so? We're going to very much know what is really going to be ahead for Spurs' season. We'll be touching on the news that it's been a big injury blow over the course of the last 24 hours that has seen Dejan Kulusevski, for those that I'm sure had their concerns and reservations about who would be next on the injury list, Kulusevski has unfortunately been struck down by the latest of Spurs' injury curse. Looks like it's going to be at least a couple of weeks missing for Dejan Kulusevski. We'll be coming on to that and more. We'll be also getting into the news that Cristian Romero has been called up for Argentina's, that's an interesting new one, Argentina's upcoming couple of games and what that means for Tottenham. Bearing in mind that this player is, he hasn't featured for the last 3 months in a Tottenham shirt, but looks like he will be going on tour with Argentina. He may very well return, of course, this coming Thursday for Tottenham's big Europa League RO16 first leg against AZ Alkmaar. Also returning, potentially, we could see Dominic Solanke in action along with Mickey van der Ven. Of course, Ange Postecoglou will be holding that press conference on, which is believed to be Wednesday, where we'll get a full update from Ange Postecoglou on the injury situation, along with some more news on, of course, Dejan Kulusevski when that leaves. We'll also be discussing Yves Bissouma's future, who we understand is set for crunch talks for Tottenham in the summer as he enters the final 18 months of his Tottenham Hotspur deal. I'm joined by, let's say, three of our regular returning guests. I'm joined by Achillea, I'm joined by Ashmatic over at the Spurs Kings, and I'm joined by Billie T. Guys, let's get into it. Bill, lovely to see you. How are you? A week off Tottenham, stress-free. God, I enjoyed that.
Good, man. I have a daughter, apparently. I didn't even realise. I've been spending so much time at Tottenham. Apparently, I have a daughter, and I've seen her now, so that's good. I actually have a family, girlfriend. I didn't know I had these things because of Tottenham, but I do, and they're actually all right. So, yeah, it's been good, man. It's been good. I feel restful, ready to get straight back into it on Thursday, man. Let's do it.
Well, I think for listeners and viewers of this show, I know I've got kids on this show, given I impromptu turn up so late, so I can't deny that I have got a family who they had with me all weekend. They absolutely loved it. They enjoyed it. And we're back with Tottenham in our lives. How happy can I be? I'm also joined by, back on the show, Honourable Ashmatic over at the Spurs Kings. Ash, how are you? You joked in the green room saying you feel 10, 15 years later. And bang, there we are back in the Kulusevski news breaks. Can't catch a break, right?
Well, I mean, I thought younger, but then, now the greys are starting to poke back through now. I heard the news about Kulusevski. I'm not too sure. Yeah, I can see yours, Billy's coming through as well, man. I know it's not easy.
Yeah, Tottenham, innit? It's Tottenham done this to us, bro.
Yeah.
They're coming round the side for me, Ash. I can't deny they're coming round the side. I can't give them. One man who always seems to be able to compose himself and not look grey at all, keeping him young. It's George Achillea. Although George is pointing to his tash, which indicates they might be coming through. G, how are you? Did you enjoy your stress-free Spurs weekend?
Yeah, sadly, there are a few coming through from this season. But you know what? I've actually taken up running since we've last played a football game. And seems like everyone's getting benefiting from those Spurs matches.
Stop running away, Gia. That's been a difficult season.
No. We started this.
How's your hamstring? Have you done your hamstring?
Right? My hammy's popped coming onto the stream hearing that news. So, it's not looking good for the rest of the week. Let's put it that way.
Listen, it's going to be a challenging week in store. And then for those that have already started their week of Tottenham back in their lives, unfortunately, we had that, obviously really, really damaging news at the start of this week as we come into it that Dejan Kulusevski's been dealt a fresh injury blow. He was one of the very few, really, that hasn't been injured during this season. But it looks like he is set for a spell on the sidelines with a foot injury. Bill very kindly shared me off air that on Instagram, for those that haven't or not looked yet, Dejan Kulusevski is sporting a boot that he's wearing, which would indicate he could be out for quite some time. We understand he's undergoing tests to determine the extent of that issue, but it seems at least for certain he is going to miss that first leg against AZ Alkmaar and this weekend's clash versus Bournemouth. It's worth obviously also pointing out there, he didn't start Spurs' last Premier League game against Man City. You'd feel because they were trying to rest him ahead of this crucial game in the Europa League round of 16. And actually missing that Man City game meant he dropped down to the bench, which ended an 11 consecutive league game streak that he both started and finished games. And you've got to stretch that back to mid-December. So does remain to be seen on a date of his return. And, to highlight his importance, Dejan Kulusevski, he's played 42 games for Tottenham already this season, scoring 10 goals, 10 assists. He's been a really important player in Spurs this season. G, I feel like I've got to start with you because I think he's been the one player that you've been seemingly concerned about, that we've avoided there being an injury, and bang, there it is. So how damaging, was that a silly question to ask you, how damaging is the loss of Kulusevski for many out there has been Spurs' player of the season so far?
Yeah, definitely. I think until this sort of Jed Spence arc that's been happening recently, I think everyone would have said that Kulusevski has been our best player by miles this season. But I think equally you could see his performances in the last maybe like 5 games or so have really, really dropped off. And I don't think that's anything to do with his ability at all. I think it's completely to do with the fact that we've effectively had to run into the ground, and he's been playing 90 minutes non-stop every week. Same him and Porro, actually. So I think I've got it up here. Porro's played the most at Spurs in the Premier League with 2,194 minutes, and Kulusevski's second with 2,154. That's the top 2 for Spurs. And I'm looking at whoever's third, and it is way, way, way down the list. I actually haven't even got to the end. I'm still scrolling. Oh, it's Brennan Johnson, I think, with Son with 1,768.
Wow.
Which is, shows a big difference that those two have had. So it almost feels like it's inevitable for Porro to go anytime soon. But it's kind of good that we've got Udogie and Spence available to sort of help him a little bit, as we've seen that he has actually been rotated the last few games. But yeah, I think the loss of Kulusevski is a huge blow, man, because we know what he can do. Is I think more so down the middle, obviously. I think he's had to play on the right because of the fact that Johnson and Co have been injured. But I think he's like, his ball carrying ability, just the way he kind of dictates himself across the pitch. He's such a good player for us this season. And I really think we're going to miss that, especially, look, it's good that Maddison's back to sort of pick up the creative side of things in midfield, which Kulusevski's been doing a part of this season. But again, you can just imagine if Maddison takes another knock, then we're kind of back to square one of just not having sort of any creativity whatsoever. So yeah, it's a big miss, and hopefully the rumours are true and it's only for a few weeks. We've obviously got a couple of weeks international break to sort of alleviate some of the pressure. So hopefully he's back after that and we're good. But yeah, I think it's a shame he's not available for these Europa League games.
Yeah, just come around to you, Ash. The publication, that's a mail from Sammy Mockbell, acknowledges that he probably will not play again before the upcoming international break. So if so, that means he will be absent for, of course, both the respective legs of this upcoming tie-in against AZ in the Europa League. And he will also miss the visit to Craven Cottage to face a Fulham side that are really, at the moment, resurgent under Marco Silva, I think it's fair to say. How big a blow is that, Ash? Kulusevski, George said it there, he's not been at his greatest heights the last 4 or 5 games, but I think there's a wide acknowledgement that he has been Spurs' player of the season, given his contribution to date.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. But I think Decky has been in the, they call it the red zone, for the last 3 to 4 weeks. And so managing his minutes was really tough. Unfortunately, it has come down to this. It wasn't just like a physical thing we could see with Kulu, because I think Ange had spoken about his engine, how he doesn't stop running, he just keeps on going. But I felt like with Kulu, it was also a mental freshness that was lacking. I think at times where you can see he was a little bit, he didn't have many ideas on the ball, what to do with it at times. And I think George has already alluded to it. His performance did drop. And I think apart from that, maybe that Ipswich game where he did score a goal, that kind of marks the performance that Kulu had over the last, I'd say, 5 to 6 games, in my opinion. And it's nothing to do with him, because we were light in those positions, especially on the right. When Brennan Johnson got injured, he was forced to play out on the right-hand side. But yeah, it will be a miss, because as we know, we like to rotate Maddison quite a bit, because Maddison also picks up quite a few knocks here and there. He's a player that likes to get on the ball, wriggle with it. Players like to put a challenge on him. And so this season we have seen Maddison rested quite a bit. And that's allowed Kulusevski to play higher up the pitch in that kind of attacking midfielder role, which he does seem to do. And he seems to drift up at times as well. But now that Kulu's gone and he's injured, I think it's going to be a lot of the heavy lifting is going to be on Maddison to stay fit and to be almost that dictator that we know we can, that tempo setter, that someone that's safe in possession, that likes to play those balls from deep. And then also get on the end of things. We've seen Maddison doing late runs of late, getting into the box, trying to finish, linking up with Jed Spence for his first Premier League goal. Now's the time for his leadership to kind of take full command, in my opinion. I think he needs to step up in that role and literally grab the number 10 shirt, because that's the one he took off Kane. So we need to see that one of those leaders step up, especially that vice captain role that he seems to have taken up.
Yeah, just on the point you're making there, Ash, there's been suggestions from Football London that Spurs are already seeking to add to that leadership group in the summer, which I know might infuriate some, that would suggest that Ange Postecoglou is firmly at the wheel come the summer as well. I mean, Bill, just to bring you in, look, there's been some passing jokes from you over the course of the last kind of 7, 8, 9 months on here that Kulusevski seems to have alluded, or what's the right word I'm looking for, is absolved any kind of injury situation so far at Tottenham, and bang, he is there full front and centre now, the latest of the injury victims. How big a blow will he be, Bill? Because I think it's fair to say that this last month or so, we've noticed there's just a slight drop from Kulusevski, not in terms, I would say, effort, determination or desire, but you could see that this 11-game streak that he's been on has been difficult to maintain a certain level, not to the point where we see him be injured, but we haven't seen the kind of consistency that we saw when he was at his peak. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think there's a chance it might turn out okay, because we've got 3 football matches in March and then an international break. Obviously, missing the international break probably works in our favour.
Yeah.
If we can get through the Alkmaar test and then potentially have him back for the next run of games, or even potentially, I know looking ahead a lot, but maybe looking at the semi-final instead. If he can't make the quarter-final, if we get there, obviously that's a lot. A lot has to happen for that in the first place. But it could work out okay that if we do manage to do that, then a fit, rested Kulusevski for the real business end of the competition could be really, really good. What I would worry about is if having an absent player like Kulusevski, who has in all of our best performances this season, he's been at the front of heart of them all. If we don't manage to get through Alkmaar, that would be an absolute disaster, and our season would be over. And I suspect Ange's job would be over as well. So it could be a disaster, but I think there's a better chance that it could actually work out in our favour. If he's sort of, the rumours are sort of saying 4 weeks, 5 weeks, then it might just be back in time for that next run of Europa League games. And if that's true, then actually he might have needed this rest, because as Ash was saying earlier, he said himself that he's playing at 40%, and this rest might do him good. You never know. I'd be interested. I think Ash is really, really correct in the fact that James Maddison has got to step up for these 2 Alkmaar games now. Put your money where your mouth is. I really like Maddison. I think he's having a better season than a lot of people give him credit for. He's got a decent number of goals and assists when he's played. He's probably been dropped quite a fair bit, which I think is possibly a bit unfair. But this is his time now, because he's not going to be dropped. He's going to play all these games now. Kulusevski's injured, and he's got to step up.
You know what might work in our favour, Bill, when I say this to Maddison, because it seems to be the indicator and the motivator for him, is that the England manager, Thomas Tuchel, seems to be keeping him a very close eye and watching him. It just feels in Maddison, Bill, if you ever agree, that when there's a upcoming international round the corner, Maddison seems to raise his game for that. And look, I'm not saying that should be the only reason why, because we're going to come on to a player very, very shortly that I know many feel does raise his level when it comes to internationals and respective club for country opinions. But it does seem in Maddison that he's got a very much big passion to play for England. But I think, as many have touched upon on so many times, Maddison's only getting that England squad if he's performing week in and week out for Tottenham, right?
Yeah, and I think that's fine. That's okay. I think it's absolutely fine for a Tottenham player to be motivated by getting in the England team. I'm sure every player, Harry Kane used to talk about it all the time. It's really, really important for players. And if Maddison's in the England team, that means he's done a good job for us. So I definitely have no problem with that. And I think if you look at his season, he's put up decent numbers. So I definitely think he deserves to be in the conversation. especially when you look around and sort of similar players, Phil Foden's having a bad season. I'm not suggesting that Phil Foden's going to be dropped from England, because that'll be a massive shock. But there's not many English players that are putting up the numbers that Maddison's putting up this season. So he definitely deserves to be in the conversation. I know, obviously, you've seen the Grealish stuff that's going around the press at the moment.
Yep.
There's not a lot of English players at the moment that are putting in decent. Cole Palmer's having a bit of a dry period as well. So those kind of players that Maddison is in contention with, there aren't many that are putting in better numbers than him at the moment.
No, that is very, very fair. Well, look, we're one with Kulusevski. We will keep an eye, and obviously it's a big body blow for Ange Postecoglou, because I think for many actually see in when we're doing the show live, the viewers and listeners that are contributing to the show, there's an admission here from quite a number of viewers and listeners that are watching the show live that Mike says here, for me, the biggest loss with Kulusevski is his defending. He doesn't get, for example, if you want to, equate it to different players, maybe like some Brennan Johnson, for example, whilst Brennan is affected in terms of finishing opportunities, there's an argument maybe he doesn't get back anywhere near the amount that Kulu does in terms of the ground that he covers. So I think, like the guys have touched upon now, this is a big opportunity for James Maddison to really stake a regular place in this Tottenham team. And where we know again that Thomas Tuchel has been in touch with James Maddison about the possibility of an England recall. That's only going to happen if he's consistent for Tottenham. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on Kulusevski, of course. And Postecoglou will bring us up to date as to where we stand with him. And we have had some news as well out there. Earlier, of course, during the day before this show recorded that, it saw the return to formal training for Mickey van der Ven, Cristian Romero and Dominic Solanke. They all participated in group training as opposed to individual training, which is a good sign that hopefully there'll be involvement for them ahead of this Thursday. But we'll get an update from Ange Postecoglou in that press conference that will be held, of course, ahead of the game. Now, fair to say that in the Spurs community, there's a number of things out there that can irritate the beloved Tottenham fans. And the fact that we hear news that Cristian Romero is being called up to the Argentina squad as he returns from his latest injury, despite not appearing for Tottenham in the last 3 months, is definitely a situation that will antagonise, that will irritate, that will frustrate fans that could be thinking to themselves, how could Cristian Romero be back in the Argentina squad before he's even kicked the ball for Tottenham over the course of the last 3 months? Now, Romero has struggled for availability this season under Ange Postecoglou. And just to put it out there, Romero, if you spread across, he's played 1,180 minutes for Tottenham. That's across 12 Premier League appearances, 1 Europa League showing, and 1 Carabao Cup match. Now, for those that are unaware or weren't aware, Romero suffered a quadricep injury after just a 15-minute period against Chelsea that Ange Postecoglou said after the game, and has remained consistent that it's a slow burner, in the words of the head coach, and hasn't played since. Now, the understanding is that he is finally nearing a second return and is expected to be available for at least some of the upcoming games against AZ, Bournemouth and Fulham in the recent weeks ahead. But the fact of the matter is, he's been unavailable for 29 Tottenham matches across 113 days, which is a real damning indictment about the players' availability and just how much Spurs have missed their vice-captain. George, I'm sure you know how sensitive this subject is. What's your take firstly on the fact that Argentina have called him up, and by all accounts, Spurs have given it the green light? I know there's some out there suggesting we shouldn't even be allowing this to happen. Do we have any control in this situation for you as a football club?
I think we do. I think teams, I think they try not to block international moves, and they probably do see it as a bit of extra game time for him. I think myself as a fan, would rather have him at home, because you don't want to have him risk, traveling all that way. It's happened a few international games with him where he's gone away, the long journey's back, and he's had to play like a day or two later, and it's just, you could tell he's looked a bit leggy. But if I'm being completely honest with you, I think so much of it has been blown out of proportion from a lot of our own fan base, if I'm being completely frank, because I see people like shouting about getting rid of him because of his attitude to wanting to play for Argentina versus Spurs. But I've not seen anything but passion when he's wanted to play for Spurs. He actually called out the board earlier this year and was being applauded for it, for saying that the ambition should be part of the club. And I feel like a lot of people just speak about ifs and buts and maybes about him not wanting to be at Spurs, and he's given up and this, that, and the other. And I personally don't see it at all. I think it's people's frustrations about his injuries and him not being available, and then all of a sudden the timing of the internationals coming around has sort of added to that. But at the end of the day, if the club have given the clearance, they seem to be extremely confident that he's going to be able to play the next 4 games even that are available before the international break. And at that point, if he's playing 4 games for Spurs, I almost think there's not really much the club can do for him to go out and play for them, because these are World Cup qualifiers against Uruguay and Brazil as well. These are probably the two of the most important games that they're going to have. And he's Argentina's best centre-back. Let's be real. They're going, if they think he's available, they are always going to call him up. It was always going to happen. Yeah. I don't think it's some people, I don't know, some fans seem to get it across that they think he's going to the Argentina board or the FA, like their association, saying, oh, no, I just want to play for you guys. Call me up. I want to get away from Spurs. Like, that's just not the case. The guy wants to play football and he just loves Argentina. Of course he does. They're extremely passionate about their country. You can tell from every single one of their players. And so, my opinion is just, I think it's just blown way out of proportion. If he's available for Argentina, I think it's great, because that means he should be available for us for the next 4 games. So we've got to see over the next games how many minutes he gets. If he's not getting many at all, then I wouldn't want to see him leave, because there's a high risk of injury there.
Yeah, I think it's also worth me putting it out there, which again, this Spurs fans might feel different when I suggest this and say this, that Mickey van der Ven, despite also appearing to be on the verge of a first-team return, Mickey hasn't been called up by his respective country, the Netherlands. He's not been called up to their upcoming fixtures ahead of the international break. And I think one of the things, Ash, that has frustrated a number of Spurs fans is that Romero has been available for all of the 4 international breaks this season, albeit missing the second games in both October and November, one for the birth of his second child. I know there's a feeling out there for some that the narrative is that he has got a lot more passion to play for Argentina than it does for Tottenham. I think where I would agree with George is that, look, saying obviously South Americans are so happy and pleased to, play for their respective country. But again, you can't go away from the fact, as George has said, he actually has called out the board for their lack of ambition at the football club. Where do you stand for you, Ash? Do you have a massive problem in the fact that he's been called up for these respective games for his country?
I think it's the history behind it. I think it's not the first time something like this has happened, and I think that's where some Spurs fans are a bit salty about it. And some people even predicted, as the international games get closer, we might see a return of Cristian Romero, and hence why they have these type of thoughts. And what a surprise, he's actually fit. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think when he called out the board and he wanted to see a bit of ambition from the club, I think that was his way of saying, look, if you guys don't do, the right signings, then maybe this isn't the club for me. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, too much tinfoil on my hat. I think maybe when he's with his boys, they're like, you're a European, you're a Copa de America winner, you're a World Cup winner. You need to be playing Champions League football, and I think he's a Champions League player. Me personally, I think he is that type of level, and I think he won't be the only one in that club thinking, I should be playing Champions League week in, week out, and if not, and the clubs can't match my ambition, I might have to make my own way. We saw it happen with Kane. Kane got frustrated along the way as well, season after season. And I think Romero is at that point where it's the first time I've actually heard slow healer. I've never heard that one before. That's one. It was a bit of a red flag for me. People don't really like Romero this season because there has been times when he's switched off, and so there has been like an anti-Romero campaign going on as well. So when he's being linked away, they're like, I mean, when he's not, showing up, and there was rumors that Real Madrid were in for him. People were like, I'd happily sell him. I'd happily sell him, So there has been that narrative. Me personally, I think Romero is a top player. If we can keep him, I definitely would. I think when we're playing out from the back, he's the reason why we aren't pressed so easily, because he's very safe in possession. In terms of passing in between the lines as well from the back, he can do that, and that's why some people said, why don't you play him defensive midfield? I wouldn't personally. I prefer him where he is, possibly a back three, because that's where he used to play at Atalanta. But yeah, without me going too far from the question, Ricky, I honestly think, there's question marks definitely for me about his absence, and then all of a sudden he's being available for Argentina. Do you know what I mean? Him calling out the club is no coincidence in my opinion. And like I said, I've got my tinfoil hat on, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Do you guys? I'm interested to see what you think. But do you guys think he's almost like I don't know what the phrase is, but like because of the narrative around Romero has come about because of the style of play he has on the pitch, the fact he's quite nonchalant and quite slow on the ball, but he kind of does that on purpose to how he plays. And this, I don't know. I'm interested to see why.
I think
for me, go on.
No, it goes back to, I think, what Ash said earlier. I think at the earlier part of the season, Romero was at fault for a number of the early mistakes. And that was at a time, I think, if you remember, G, there was speculation in the summer that there was interest from Real Madrid. And the reality is that we're in this situation now, Bill, coming over to you, where we're entering that, as we know, that 18-month contract period, which if you're Daniel Levy, you're either got to commit long-term or he's going to look for a fee for you in the summer. That's what I think, We saw the way Harry Kane left the football club. Spurs are never going to let that get down to 2 or 3 months before an expiry. I mean, what's your taking it for you, Bill? Because, again, I'll make that point. There's that feeling out there that whenever Argentina come around in terms of upcoming internationals, Romero is always available to play. And then when it comes to Tottenham, whether it be for injury, whether it be through absent for another reason, he just hasn't been available for us. And again, I'll make that point. I think if you are counting the Copa America in the summer, Romero's appeared in Argentina matches since June. 10. He's appeared in 10 of those, almost as many as the 14 games he's played for Spurs since then, plus 1 substitute appearance in the friendly against Bayern before the start of the season. So I think that's another reason why fans would be frustrated from the club element of it. I mean, again, in total, since joining 2021, Romero's played in 112 games for Tottenham. And according to this is transfer mark, he's been unavailable for 60 matches through injury and another 6 through suspension. So they're big stats there, Bill, and you can't get away from the amount of absent games that he's missed for Tottenham. Is that why there would be that frustration about the fact that as soon as Argentina have upcoming games, Romero is back in the squad?
I think so, man. But I think it also goes to what Ash is saying, that he's such a good player. And as a fan, you want your best players playing. And without Romero, our team is significantly weakened. And I think he is one of the best centre-backs in the world. There's no getting away from it. And if you're talking about on the ball, passing out from the back, there's not many better centre-backs in world football, which is why he's linked with, moves to clubs like Real Madrid. I think the interesting thing for me would be, if you're Real Madrid right now and you're looking at this player that's missed almost half a season this season, half a season last season, are you going to want to spend the amount of money that it will cost to take him from Tottenham, which would be 50, 60 million? And I think there's only really a handful of clubs that can afford to buy Romero at the moment in the climate of football. You're probably looking at PSG, Real Madrid, probably not Barcelona, because, they have all kinds of issues. Saudi is not going to go there. Bayern Munich, it doesn't really seem to fit. There's been no links with Bayern Munich. So you're only really looking at Real Madrid in terms of clubs that can actually buy him and afford him and linked with him. And if I was Real Madrid, are you going to spend that much money on a player that's missed this amount of games? I'm not sure they're going to do it, especially when they're rumoured to be having a big transfer window and buying a player like Trent Alexander-Arnold, who will be free, but massive wages. I don't even know if they'll spend the money on it. So it could find itself in a situation when we have Romero next season, which I would love, because I think he's an absolutely brilliant centre back, and I love having him at Tottenham. And I think a lot of the frustration comes out of the fact that we want this guy to be playing in our games because he's that good. And I think one thing I will say about Romero, though, is when he's playing for Tottenham, I don't doubt his commitment. I think he's always incredibly passionate, and I think sometimes that can be to his detriment. He gets aggressive, sometimes a bit too aggressive. But I don't think he's as rash as people make out, though. But he can certainly be. He's a very passionate player, and I don't actually doubt his commitment to Tottenham. I think he often talks about the fact how much he loves the manager, loves the club, and
Yep.
hates the owners, which is for me music to my ears. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Romero.
Well, you said that, Bill, and again, I'll just double qualify on that point you said there. He has also suggested in the past that suggestions that he gives anything less than 100% for Spurs, or that his loyalty lie with his country, really frustrates and angers him. Gut feeling on it, G? Will he be a Spurs player next season for you, Romero? Do you think the club will cash in? Because you are entering, as I mentioned, that kind of critical 18-month period where something's got to give. You feel he's either going to sign, or he's got to sign a new contract, which, depending on what our end of the season looks like, again, that's up in the air at the moment, or the club will look to cash in on him. And I think it goes back to what Bill says there, how many clubs are willing to pay a big fee for a player that hasn't been massively available from a club perspective, G?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one because to me, to be honest with you, I see him as a potential Real Madrid player. Like, he looks like someone that could be at Real Madrid, and I imagine that would be the main destination if he were to leave. I think, if I'm not mistaken, what is it, 2 years left on his deal in the summer, which is, you'd argue, the prime time to sell a player if you're thinking in that way. But historically, knowing how much, you know, Daniel Levy and co hold out for, especially some of their best assets, I think what we're probably going to be demanding like 80 million minimum for him. Even Real Madrid, I don't really see them coughing up the money this summer. Like Bill was just saying there, when you've got like some potentially Trent going over there, the talks are they're looking at Saliba and other players as well. I think they're quite dry on the left back position, if I'm not mistaken, as they tried to get Alphonso Davies, but I believe he just signed a new deal at Bayern. So yeah, I don't know. I think he's still going to be a Spurs player come the start of the next season. But I think there will be heavy links, as Real Madrid are definitely going to be after a centre back this summer. It's going to be an interesting window. I just don't see anyone really forking out the money that we would be demanding for him. And I'm glad, because I echo the same things as well. I think he's fantastic. I think he's underrated by quite a lot of the fan base. And let's be real, he's a World Cup winner, 2 times Copa America winner, who you've had some of the best players in the world say how important he is to the team. And I think we kind of undervalue him in that sense.
Yeah, I think fans, to some degree, haven't forgotten maybe the mistakes made at the start of the season where anyone can have a bad performance. I think Romero, though, was at the heart.
I think it's because we haven't seen many more performances from him, so we can't we haven't really got like anything to test it against.
You're right. Obviously, they brought him back for that Chelsea game, as we know. They brought the pair back, Romero and Van der Ven, and they both got injured. Ash, come around to you. Gut feeling for you, Romero, will he be a Spurs player at the end of the summer, next summer coming up?
Real Madrid have many options, in maybe like Van Dijk leaving on a free if he doesn't sign a contract. Also, Saliba's heavily linked to Real Madrid as well. So they've got a few players that they're looking at, and then Romero. But it's not to say there's not another club that might not come in and maybe test the waters. But like these guys said already, it's going to take a substantial amount to get him over the line, because Levy does like to drive a hard bargain, and he puts a heavy amount of Levy tax on top. So if he is to go, it will be for big money, and whether clubs will want to cough that up, I'm not too sure. So I think he will stay. Will he sign the contract extension? That will tell me a lot if he does.
I just wonder, again, I don't think we can have this situation happen again where he misses quite a big spell through injury, and yet again, international football rises its head, and suddenly he makes himself available for it. I personally can't see that. I mean, Bill, what's your gut feeling on it for you? You mentioned there about the fact that he's criticised the board. Actually, on that point, we've not seen him since he's criticised the board. Again, that could lead to a completely other kind of question.
He was back in training in November.
Yeah, I think that's why, again, a lot of fans have the feeling, Bill, that's why there's been that kind of, as you know, that undercurrent of kind of what's been going on here with Romero and Van der Ven, because they came back to training. They, in the space of 2 weeks, disappeared off all the pictures at the time. I mean, people thought they'd say it more sinister here. And the fact that, again, Anne just kind of in the last month or so seemingly kind of doubled down on the fact that it's a real slow healing injury that he's got. What's the gut feeling for you? Will he be here at the end of the summer?
I think he will be, just because I don't see in the current climate of football that there's going to be a buyer for him. I don't think that anyone's going to fork out the money. And I would love him to be here next season. Hopefully, sign a new deal. That would be my ideal situation. Because I want our football squad to get better, not worse. And I think if we sell Romero, it's going to get worse.
Well, what I'm intrigued to know, Bill, just sticking with you for a second, is when we have got the situation where we do have, arguably for many out there, the two best centre-backs at the club available in Romero and Van der Ven, I'm intrigued to know from you, Bill, what actually happens to Archie Gray and Kevin Danso when it comes to their place in the team? Because Ange hasn't been shy in admitting the fact in the past that Romero and Van der Ven have been his almost number one pairing. Does that change at all? Does it come to a place-by-place basis? How do you see that changing if those two do become available and free to play?
I think Romero will pretty much play every game. If he's fit, he'll play every game that we need him to, because he's that good. I think Van der Ven will be a completely different case. And what it sounds like about his injury, they're going to have to manage it really, really carefully. And I was reading something today that apparently he's not really going to be fully fit until next season, because they're really trying to manage his hamstring and completely change the way that they look after him going forward. Obviously, he's had 2 hamstring injuries in 2 seasons, including one at Wolfsburg that makes 3 and 3. So it's a real big concern. There's no way that Mickey Van der Ven is going to be playing every game for us until the rest of the season. And I think if you're going to put someone in, it'll probably be Danso and Romero quite a bit. I think Archie Gray will get minutes all over the place because he can just play across the whole back line and in the midfield. So I definitely think he'll get some minutes. But make no mistake, I think for our big games, Van der Ven and Romero will be playing. But I think the other two will get plenty of minutes, just because in the league and things, we're going to have to rotate and rest players, which we can now finally, looks like we can afford to do. But I think the big games I'll play, but I think there'll be plenty of minutes in there for Danso and Archie Gray as well.
Yeah, I know George, many out there, they've been waiting to see with bated breath when Archie Gray will play in that position that we're being told is his favoured one of that number 6. He's played everywhere but that position so far. And then in someone like Kevin Danso, I think he's really come in and adapted fairly well to the league. I know he was at fault, you'd argue, from one of the goals, you'd say maybe against Ipswich. And again, City game, I don't want to go too overboard on that. I think he's had a fairly good start to life at Tottenham, Kevin Danso. How do you see that playing out when Van der Ven and Romero do come back to full fitness?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I've actually been really, really pleasantly surprised with Danso. I was not expecting him to adapt as quick as he has, if I'm being completely honest with you. And I think he's had some really, really solid performances so far for Spurs. So I think that's a good find by the club, to be honest. And I think a lot of us fans really need to start getting this idea of just a first 11 out of our heads now. I think there are just far too many games across the season and far too many injuries happening now with professional footballers that it's not just a first 11 anymore with backups. We now need a full-on squad that can rotate and the energy and the levels don't drop. And I like the fact that we do have Danso that can, to be fair, play both sides, because he's been playing as the left centre-back alongside Archie Gray for most of the games recently. So, look, if you have to manage Van der Ven's minutes and you've got Danso alongside him, I don't mind that at all. And obviously, I know it's going to be a long time for Dragusin to come back, and he's not really had the greatest times recently in his playing for Spurs. But I think it's good to have really solid options for rotation. And I just really, really wish we can see Gray in that sort of number 6 position, because realistically, that's what we bought him for. It's the position we're crying out for someone. A lot of chat about Cardoso and like some other players and whatnot, but we've got the guy right there. He's showing how competent he is in this league at the age of 18, winning the London's Young Player of the Year award not too long ago as well. Like, there's clearly a massive talent there, and it's not. What I like about him is that we saw it, especially in the Ipswich game as well. He might make a mistake early on in the game, like coming up against Liam Delap, really maybe not marking him as well as he could, but he learns so quickly in the moment how to handle that, and he adapts his game throughout the match. I think a similar thing happened to Man City with like marking Haaland and so on, and Doku and so on and so forth. So I really like that his mentality for his age. So I think he's someone that we really are going to have to strive for that sort of defensive mid number 6 position, whatever you want to call it. So hopefully he starts getting minutes there. But I think there was I'm pretty sure a journalist asked Ange about it maybe like 2 weeks ago, like, are we going to see him in this position? He seems to allude to more of the fact that he's going to be used as a defender for the rest of the season. But you never know. Maybe come the summer when we've got the pre-season and hopefully a bigger and better squad, we'll start seeing him in that sort of his supposedly his natural number 6 position. That's what I want to see.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because the thing with Archie Gray is that everyone is talking about this kind of dominating number 6 that we're crying out for. And we're not sure if Archie Gray is that person because we just simply haven't seen him there yet. So whilst a lot of us are kind of racking our brains as to kind of what the summer looks like for Tottenham and what we need, Archie Gray may very well be the player that we need, but we haven't seen him in that position yet, so it's a quandary. One player that's future, I think it's fair to say, isn't as certain as Archie Gray's at Tottenham long term, and that's Yves Bissouma coming out of the US. We're hearing reports that Tottenham are set for crunch talks with Yves Bissouma in the summer as they look to get a grip as to what his future does hold in a Tottenham shirt. Now, Bissouma could only watch from the substitutes bench on the eve of the Man City game as he was on there, and he's pretty much become a bench player in these recent few weeks for Tottenham. It's fair to say, Bissouma. In the Premier League, he started 12 games. He's come on as a substitute 8 times. He's remained an unused sub on 3 occasions. He's quite clearly dropped down the pecking order in this latter part of the season, which would indicate things doesn't look too good for him. It does appear that Lucas Bergvall has now leapfrogged him in Ange Postecoglou's preferred midfield, which seems to be a choice between Bergvall. You've got Maddison in there. You've got Bentancur in there. That there's been suggestions in the last week or so. Tottenham are opening preliminary talks with him over a new deal. Assuming you go back to his last game playing for Tottenham, he started and played 68 minutes against Brentford and was brought on as a late sub in both the Manchester United and the Ipswich Town wins, and then was completely left out altogether of the home defeats to Man City and Leicester. So it is a real mixed period for Bissouma right now in a Tottenham shirt. It does feel that Lucas Bergvall has pretty much seized the moment, grabbed his opportunity, and hasn't really looked back. We've just seen Bissouma demoted down the pecking order in a Tottenham squad list. I mean, Ash, for you, what does the future hold for Bissouma in a Tottenham shirt? Do you feel it could be coming to a conclusion this summer?
Yeah, I think I was at the start of the season. They were saying that it's between Bentancur and Bissouma, their futures are up in the air, and it's about one of them kind of pinning down that position as theirs to keep down. And I thought at the time it was a good idea to keep them on their toes, keep them hungry. Obviously, Bissouma had the incident with the balloons at the start of the season, let a lot of fans down, and the trust was hard to get back. I remember lots of people were like furious with him with his social media antics. And then he came back, I think it was against Everton, the second game, and he scored that goal. Yep. And then, after he scored that goal, I think he cemented his stay in that position, which people call the number 6 or the defensive midfielder role. And between him and Bentancur, they were, in that position. But Bentancur obviously had the incident on his international duties where he had to face a ban. And I thought this is Bissouma's chance to kind of, show his worth and nail that position down. And unfortunately, when he did get that chance, he had a few games where it was good. But then I feel like his confidence for me went. And with his performances, he's been hot and cold this season. Some games he's been great, he's kept it really simple, won the ball back, did short passes, did what you need to do. But then I think there's games like the Arsenal game that stands out to me where Ange actually wants his players to be brave. But I think with Bissouma, he was brave in the wrong time. He was in that wide position on the pitch. And I think it was Declan Rice and Partey was breathing down his neck. And he decides to get on the ball in a half turn and try to take his man on when the pass was on. I think it was to Jed Spence on the left. That was on. It was Jed Spence doing the 1-2. He decides not to give it back to him, tries to take him on, loses the ball. And then as a consequence, it, breaks. Rice, I think, does a ball right into, I think it was their winger, Trossard, on that left-hand side. He cuts inside, shoots on the edge of the box. Kingsley, our new goalkeeper, gets a little hand to it, but doesn't have enough to keep it out the back of the net. And then everyone looks at Bissouma like, what are you doing? And so it's unfortunate for him. His performances like that stay in not just the fans' minds, but maybe neutral fans as well, even maybe the managers and staff. And I remember there was times that he was on the pitch and he's just laying flat on his back, breathing heavily. And I've seen him social media like, sorry guys, I've let you down. I apologize. I promise I'll make it up. And it's just been too many times we've seen that type of performance from Bissouma. And yeah, I think personally he may have to move on back to his home country in France. Ironically, I think it's been linked that he is got links to Marseille, which I think Højbjerg is at. So imagine that double, two Spurs midfielders playing underneath the Zerbi. That would be crazy. Or even he could stay in the Premier League. He could go to Crystal Palace. And I don't know why. I could just see him tearing it up at Crystal Palace. And I don't know if it's because I don't know if it's the level of Spurs. I don't know if it's because I'm not saying Spurs is a massive club, but at Brighton he was such a monster. Imagine him go to Palace and then him just tearing it up. Sorry, George, you're going to say something. I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying swap deal for Wharton would be nice.
Oh yeah. That would be immense. That would be immense, right? Get it done, man. So yeah,
there is something there with Bissouma. I think actually you hit the nail on the head. Where I think there's been certain games for some fans where they can't get out of their mind the mistakes that has been made with Bissouma. And I think Bill, it kind of goes back to that movie. It reminds you of like Meet the Parents with the Circle of Trust, where it just felt with Ange that Everton game, which I know was a long time ago now at the start, very start of the season, we had that balloon incident. It felt like he had to really work his ways to find a way back into Ange's plans. But I think I've just never been fully satisfied that we are ever going to see the best of Yves Bissouma in a football shirt. I don't know you, Bill, you feel the same on that. I think he'll be it can be good for a couple of games, but I don't see anything Bissouma to suggest to me we've got a player there that's long-term the right fit for Tottenham. Is that fair, Bill? Do you feel the same?
I think that's fair at this point. I think there's been multiple incidents where he's cost us games of a lack of discipline in terms of on the ball. Like he gives the ball away a lot. He gave away that penalty against Chelsea, didn't he, this season? That was a shocker.
Yeah,
I think the Liverpool game, he gave the ball away for a goal. The Arsenal game, as G already mentioned. Countless of these. And then if you take off the off-the-field discipline and the actual discipline of getting sent off, count that in as well. He was suspended twice last season. It's not good enough for a club that we want to be at. And I think it's a real shame because there's definitely a talented player there, but it's not, if you have aspirations to be a club that are competing at the highest level, he doesn't have it. He's not good enough to play at that level consistently, which is a shame. But, you have to be ruthless in these situations. You have to get rid of these players and hopefully buy better. I'm certainly, tomorrow happily get Wharton in straight away. I think he's a brilliant player. I haven't heard you do the voice yet, Rick, but obviously Cardoso is linked strongly as well.
Johnny Cardoso.
Yeah, I think we definitely need some players there, man. I think we definitely should improve on midfield. I mean, different conversation, but I'm personally not massively convinced that him or Bentancur are good enough. And I like the look of Bergvall. I think he's been brilliant. Yeah. But I think we need to upgrade in midfield quite considerably if we want to progress.
Yeah, Bill, I totally agree with you. I mean, we had the talk in the last few weeks that Spurs are going to reportedly open preliminary negotiations with Bentancur over a new deal. I mean, I don't mean it to any disrespect, but give me those days back at Dembele and Wanyama and those players. I mean, it's
those are proper midfielders,
Bill. They are, aren't they?
Yeah, these are not proper midfielders. They're okay players. Some of them, Bentancur, Bissouma. But when you look at some of the stuff that we used to have, Dembele, the likes of that, and obviously not long before that, Modric, like they're way off that kind of level, that real quality.
Yeah. I mean,
if you look at Liverpool right now, the guys that they have in the centre mid, like the Gravenberch and people like that, we're a long way off that at the moment.
Well, I think what worries me is, Bill, you touched upon it there. I look at some of the teams that are now kind of forming around the kind of top 8, top 9 of the Premier League now, the likes of Bournemouth, Brighton, Fulham, all due respect. I look at some of their midfield pairings.
That Baleba at Brighton is brilliant. Like you got Semenyo. There's a lot of decent players around Wharton, and these clubs that we want to be finishing above easily, and a lot of them midfield players that are better than ours at the moment.
Yep, I think that's a representation as well. When you look at those teams and you see where Spurs' league position is, I'm not saying it's just based on midfielders, but there's an indication there in terms of the strength in those certain teams, why they've got the players that they are. I mean, that's before you even come to someone like Sarr as well. I think perhaps Sarr, for me, I had such high hopes for Sarr this season. I think difficult one because he got injured or came back late, of course, from his international tournament, respectively, in the summer. And again, I felt it was such a big year for Sarr. that we haven't really seen the best of him. So we've got to fill in our midfield at the moment, and much of a muchness. I think with Graham, Bergvall, there's some real high hopes for them two for the future. But I think along with Graham Bergvall, I think we've really got to bring in, as we've touched upon so many times on here, some decent experience that is going to really help this team out. And I think we come to a point where both, in my opinion, look, Bissouma and Bentancur, I think they've had good games, but if you're asking me if they're the future of Tottenham, I don't think they are the future of Tottenham, Bill.
And even if you look at our direct rivals, teams like Newcastle, Aston Villa, you've got Rodgers, you've got Bruno Guimaraes. We're nowhere near this quality at the moment. We need to heavily invest in the midfield for me.
We're not. Listen, we're going to quickly wrap up the very latest transfer news that has come across in the last 48 hours. Isn't it so Tottenham? We seem to be getting more transfer links now that we're out the window when we're bloody in it, which pretty much sums up the basket case of this football club. Which
it's like Ash says, man, tinfoil hat, season ticket renewal time. That's why they always come out about now.
Well, just on that point, Bill, I mean, I think it's been on the back of a week where we've seen, I think, the likes of West Ham, Brentford, they've frozen their season ticket prices. I know there's a feeling out there if Tottenham frozen for the next 5 years, they would still be overpriced. I mean, Bill, do you have any confidence that the club will freeze season ticket prices? What do you think they will do? Gut feeling on it for you? They can't raise them. They surely can't raise them after the season we've had here, surely.
They would be absolutely insane to raise them, but it would not surprise me one bit, to be honest. I know Arsenal have just come out today and raised theirs. And, historically, we seem to go in line with Arsenal quite often. I think Everton, Man United have all come out and raised theirs as well. I think it's only Liverpool and West Ham that have frozen theirs. It would definitely go against the grain at the moment, but I think the club have to know it would cause a serious fire if they did choose to raise them. But you can never predict this ownership. They don't make good decisions. They don't make decisions based on fan sentiment. They make decisions based on making more money. So nothing would surprise me at this stage. Speaking with my change for Tottenham hat on, if they do raise them, I think we would get a groundswell of support wanting to protest against the board, because how could you raise the season ticket prices in a season where it's been our worst season in living memory? So, it would be crazy to do, but I would never predict the actions of this board. So who knows? No.
Nothing would surprise us. Just particularly for 1 second, Bill. I know you mentioned word protest there. I think you guys have got potentially another date in the diary. Is it worth sharing at the moment? Is there plans in works? Do you want to give that a quick mention?
Yeah, man, we're definitely going to protest for the Southampton game. I think it's on April the 7th, Sunday, April the 7th at 2 o'clock. Keep an eye on the socials for details on that protest. Obviously, hoping to build on the first one, which had massive numbers. And we're keeping an eye on what the club are doing with season ticket prices. I think that could be a big driver behind our message. Regardless of what happens in the next few games, it doesn't change anything for me. Doesn't change anything for change for Tottenham. This is a board that cannot deliver for Tottenham and for Tottenham fans to turn us into a successful club. So we will be protesting at that game, and we'll be hoping to release more information soon.
Bill, thank you so much. Look, we're going to give you a quick roundup of the latest news in the last 48 hours of transfer news on Tottenham. Spurs are reported considering in the summer a move for Porto striker Samu Omorodion. The Spaniard only traded Atletico Madrid for Portugal over the summer after a move to Chelsea broke down. One to keep an eye on there. Spurs are also monitoring the 20-year-old Hugo Larsson. Larsson has established himself as an important player for Eintracht Frankfurt and has 5 goals to his name this season for the German club. And he's understood to be a name on many a club's radar, so keep an eye on him. Another one that I think in the summer could be a potential big mover for a lot of clubs out there is Benjamin Sesko, currently at RB Leipzig. We know Arsenal are also showing a strong interest in him. The player currently has a release clause that stands at around the 70 million euro mark, but by the end of the season, it is expected that could reach approximately the 80 million mark. So keep an eye on him, Benjamin Sesko. There's said to be a lot of interest for him ahead of the summer for sure. And we know the player has previously suggested he'd love to play in the Premier League. A name that has not gone away over the last 7 windows as a Tottenham fan. That's Eberechi Eze. Fabrizio Romano confirms that he remains part of Tottenham's shortlist, but his release clause makes any move a difficulty. Fabrizio said he's on Spurs' list since 2023. He's always been highly rated at the club, but the release clause is very expensive. The payment for the clause is not allowed in 3 to 4 years, as usually happens. So that's what makes this deal difficult, and there are more clubs also keen. Reminder out there that Eberechi Eze is a base client, which I know many suggested and thought at the time would mean it'll be easier for Spurs to get him. It hasn't proved to do so yet. He was, I think, seen 2 to 3 times at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last season. Maybe that's the reason why he didn't join us in the summer. Who knows? So one to keep an eye on. But that's your very, very latest transfer news over the course of the last 24, 48, 72 hours. I mean, I can briefly ask the guys, any news there for you that's groundbreaking or anything exciting at the moment? Or is it just a case of we are approaching syndicate renewals, probably names to keep an eye on, but nothing at the moment imminent where we should get too excited?
No, definitely the latter one there. Because, I mean, to be honest with you, I've gone like transfer sort of overload after January. You know, when you kind of just want to get away from it for a bit because there's been so many links.
And I keep bringing it back. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, but look, I think we saw this last year. I think a year ago to the day, potentially, we were linked to Nico Williams and people getting excited. And it's just, there always seems to be the big names get floated around this time, drive some excitement up, get the renewals in and whatever for next season. And then, we really see what happens in the summer. But look, in terms of the actual names listed, it seems like a good list. I mean, I've been banging on the drum for Eze for years, and I'd still be absolutely over the moon if we do go for him, despite how difficult the deal supposedly may be. It's still one I think that can get done, but for sure, it just seems to be that they've handpicked a few of big names that have been floating around. You know, Sesko linked to a rival. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Omorodion nearly joining Chelsea in the summer. And obviously Eze is a classic one for Spurs. He's almost becoming Leandro Damião territory at the moment. So I'm really at that point of just not looking into anything too heavily at the moment because let's be real, when have we ever got a deal done and ready in advance 4 months before the season's finished? So
I can already hear Marlon in my ear probably saying to me, Ash is going to get ready for these 4-hour compilations now, these players already, with these summer links coming up. So I won't put Ash through that. But what I am going to ask Ash is that, look, we're on the eve of this massive, massive tie for Spurs. First leg of 2 in the Europa League, where it's quite simply, look, a do or die. Couple of games for Tottenham now are going to very much shape what the rest of this season looks like for Tottenham. Now we're looking to make it a double over AZ Alkmaar when the teams do meet on Thursday. Face each other, of course, back in October in the league phase. Spurs came out on top with all 3 points after a Charlatan second half penalty. And I think it's fair to say, you know, many were surprised to see AZ Alkmaar advance against Galatasaray. So it's not going to be an easy game here. It really isn't going to be an easy game. So, look, Spurs, they're currently the favourites to lift the Europa League. I say that dangerously, saying we're the favourites for any kind of tournament or any kind of game. I mean, Ash, your take on it? Is it a game where if you think Tottenham do turn up and play to their potential, they should be able to get a confident and positive result out in AZ to bring it back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? Ash, what's your gut feeling on the game?
You can never say with Spurs because we've had a massive mentality issue from the club before Ange, in fact. So with the players, it's down to them as whether Ange can motivate them. Really, they shouldn't need to be motivated against AZ because we're in the Europa Cup. It's our first chance really to lift some real silverware, a real big opportunity because it's more or less, I wouldn't say a tier 2, but none of the Champions League teams are dropping down into the competition for the first time. So you look at the opposition and you're like, on our day, we should be able to beat them. And even in the league on our day, we can beat anyone, I feel, when we're at our actual best. So this game here, we've beaten them already. So I think the players would draw confidence from that. We beat them at home. And that's when we saw Mikey Moore show what he was really worth. He showed an exceptional performance out wide on that left-hand side. And the only thing I would say about AZ, the difference between them when we played them and against Galatasaray, is that they were missing a few key players in that tie. And so now they're going to be fully strengthened coming back into this side, and they're going to want to smell blood. They want to get vengeance back. They're currently, I think, is it 6th in their league? So they're not doing, terribly. I know people don't really rate that particular league in the Eredivisie, but they're a team that you have to take seriously. Especially away from home. Their fans are quite rowdy as well. They've got a reputation. So
Yep.
it's not going to be an easy atmosphere to go and go over there. But I do believe that when I look at it head to head, I look at our competition, our route to the this particular stage in the competition. We've won more games than them. We've actually scored more goals per games, but then we've actually created more chances than them as well. I'm just going through the stats right now as I'm looking through it. In terms of big chances missed, we've missed less as well. I know possession doesn't mean a lot to fans, but we've had a lot more possession in them in the right areas as well. More clean sheets and less goals conceded. So those are the type of stats that give me some confidence. And we've, other than Man City, we've actually been winning games as well. So I think out of the two legs, I think, yeah, we get anything away from this away result, I think we'll win that home leg and we will qualify into the next round, in my opinion.
Yeah, what I do agree with, a lot of comments are suggesting it here that the fact of the matter is that no easy game, no, there's no easy away game in Europe. I mean, Bill, coming over to you, AZ have only lost once at home in all competitions since the start of December. And again, I'll make that point. They really impressively did knock out Galatasaray. So I don't think this will be an easy game on paper. And, despite the fact they beat them, Galatasaray 6-3 in aggregate after beating them 4-1 at home in the first leg, suggests this is not going to be an easy game. And as Ash touched upon, atmosphere there at the stadium, I think only holds around just over 19,000. There'll be a raucous atmosphere there. We know Dutch fans are known for their passion. They're known for getting behind their sides. And it will be another test, won't it, in terms of Spurs' mentality, as Ash has touched upon, about Ange picking the right team, getting the right tactics. And I think they'll be acutely aware as well that it does feel for a lot of Spurs fans, not all Spurs fans, that this next week is going to pretty much decide the season. Am I overbilling that, Bill, or is that how you feel as well as a fan?
No, man. This is definitely our biggest game of the season, and every Europa League game is from now on. I was definitely up for saying it's going to be a tricky game, and there's no easy games. But then I just looked at the Arsenal score, a bit of worrying, man. They've set the stall out there by beating PSV 7-1 away, so PSV are above them in the league, so that's a bit of a worry. And, the stall is out now. Got to go and try and do something like that. But my worry is we're historically terrible away in Europe. Like, we are really, really poor away in Europe. I know guys that have been going to Europe for like 10, 15 years, and they've seen like 3 wins in that time. Historically, we are really bad at winning away in Europe. So it's going to have to be a big, big mentality thing. And as Ash was talking about earlier, like, I worry about our mentality. I've always worried about this team's mentality. Do they have what it takes to go to a place like that and put in a big win, get a big win? And, because if we're talking about the business end of the season now, ideally we want this wrapped up in one leg. Like, if you look at Arsenal, Aston Villa right now, they probably wrapped up their first, that 2-leg tie in one game, which is what we ideally would love to do. So we can rotate more in the coming games. That would be brilliant. And I think we would have to be really talking complacent if we think it's going to be easy, because I don't believe that at all. Especially if you look at Galatasaray results. But at the end of the day, we have to be winning this game, or we have to at least be drawing if we have any aspirations of winning this competition. I think for them, it's probably, playing a huge English team like us is one of their biggest games, in their recent history. So the atmosphere is going to be crazy. What the European fans are like with their atmospheres, and whether we can, have the mentality to deal with that remains to be seen, because we certainly didn't when we came up against Galatasaray and Rangers. We looked really poor in those games, so it'd be interesting to see what happens. But I'm quietly confident, because the fact is, if we want to win the Europa League, we have to be winning this game. We have to be putting the tie to bed in one game. If we have any aspirations of actually being able to compete with the likes of Bilbao and Lazio, Alkmaar have got to go.
They have got to go. I mean, I think Bill makes some really important points there, G, around the fact of the different atmospheres we've had to experience already away from home in Europe this season. Rangers obviously being one that it was rocking, wasn't it, at Ibrox earlier this season. They got away with a point there. I think it's fair to say Spurs escaped with a point during that game. But on the whole, I think we've done okay away in Europe. Obviously, we beat Ferencvaros, didn't we? I mean, we had that disappointing result against Galatasaray. I think it goes back to what the guys have said really in their kind of segments on this part, that the mentality's got to be right for this game. And it just feels like the next fortnight as a Spurs fan comes down to really what progression looks like in these two Europa games. Is that how you feel, G? It all kind of comes down to this kind of crunch period now?
It does in a way, yeah, because this is what our season now hinges on. These are the two most important games that we have left right now. Because I've said this before, but the difference between what's not a European place, ninth. The difference between 9th and 17th is nothing. Realistically, for us as fans, it's been a shoddy season in terms of the Premier League, regardless. So for me, where we finish in that sort of position does not matter to me anymore.
Yeah.
For me, it's all about the Europa League, and I think these are such two important, really important 2 games coming up. And yeah, I think obviously our away record's been tough. I think notoriously, like you guys have said before, any European, whether it's Champions League or Europa League, it's really tough to go away from home. With most of the time, home team is coming away with a win. But however, saying that, I think having these players come back and hopefully being available for the game on Thursday should be a huge boost for us, especially when it comes to the mentality side of things. Just knowing that, all right, okay, maybe they won't start, maybe they will, but if you've got your Solankis available and if Tell struggles again in another game, or the fact that Romero might be able to start alongside Danzo, I think that breeds a lot of confidence within the team, especially when you lose a player like Kulusevski. And we touched on him and in that Kulusevski segment anyway, but like I think it was Billy that said it. Ash said it originally. This is Maddison's time to shine. He's really got to put it on a plate in these next couple of weeks. So I think there's a lot that these players need to prove in this next week and a half, which should hopefully boost the team a bit. But it wouldn't be. It'd be disingenuous if I said I wasn't nervous about the game on Thursday. I think like most people are, but I think we've really got to go in with the mentality that these are just winnable games, and we have to do it, get to the next round, and take on the next challenge. Because these are the most important games this season now.
Gee, you got a right to be nervous. We're a Tottenham team that lost to a player, a manager that was in prison. We can't forget our last Europa League experience. Let's go for predictions. Can we get off to a good start in a 2-legged tie? Let's go to Ash to open up. Ash, what are we going for? Important first leg. I think this will very much set the tone. What are we going to do, Ash, over there? What can we do over there?
I see Spurs. I can never predict a clean sheet, so I always say like we'll concede a goal. So away from home, hostile environment. Romero's coming back. Hopefully, he puts a good performance in nonetheless with Danso. I'm hoping, or either way, Archie Gray with Danso, whichever way it is. I think the boys will get it done. 2-1. I'm going to go for. Will it be impressive? I'm not too sure, but yeah, the boys will get the job done. Comedy Spurs.
It feels like it's all about result now over performances. I mean, Bill, come over to you. We've just seen the enemy go and slaughter a Dutch team 7-1 aggregate in their first leg. I'm not going to ask you if we can match it, but can we get a result over there that kind of, in a way, gives a bit of breathing space going into the second leg, or do you think it will be all to play for that second leg? What are we going for, Bill, first leg?
So this is our last one for a while, where we're going to be playing at home second. The quarterfinal, semi-final will be away seconds, which I think makes a big difference. So I think we could afford to maybe draw this game. Obviously, we would ideally like to win. So I think we're not going to go gung-ho, I think. Whereas if we're playing the home leg first, we'll probably go a bit more gung-ho. So I'm going to go conservative. 1-0 Tottenham as well. I don't think we're going to go gung-ho to go and smash them out there. I think it'll be a really tight game, and I hope we can get just a small advantage to take back with us, because if we're taking an advantage back with us, I won't be worrying about the home leg, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of those frustrating games. I think for UK viewers and listeners out there, it's one of those annoying, kind of 5:30, 5:45 starts. It's those kickoff times are a bit of a frustration. It'd be nice if it was pushed back to a bit more later time. But I know for many that are travelling out there, it's all about the result. It's all about getting the result and bringing it back in a situation with a second leg. It's in our hands. G, will it be in our hands in the second leg? What are we going for in this first leg?
Yeah, it's a bit of a boring answer, but I have to agree with the 2-1. I don't see us not conceding, and as we've alluded to this whole time about away games and stuff being tough, I don't think we're going to blow them out of the water either. So it's going to be a tight game, but I still personally see us winning. So that only kind of leaves me to sort of 2-1, to be honest. Yeah. So yeah, we'll probably concede first.
I think we take a 2-1. I think the most important thing is that it's in our hands come
100%.
the second leg at home, and we've got a chance to qualify. So look, I think all news now switches to Ange Postecoglou, in which you'll update us, of course, on where we are with Romero, Van der Ven, Solanke, respectively, and we'll get some more news, of course, on the headline news so far of the week that Tottenham have lost Dejan Kulusevski to an injury, and we'll get more of an update from Ange. I want to say a massive thank you. It wouldn't be a bit of an injury update if it wasn't Tottenham, would it? We'd have to have something. I want to say a massive thank you to Billie T. I can tell you Billy hasn't pulled a hamstring during this episode, although I know with his schedule we've got Bill on at some point, he's going to pull in something. Sorry, Bill. How are you? Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, man. Not pray for my hamstrings. Let's pray for Tottenham's hamstrings in that Alkmaar game. I just want to shout out my man Tony and his son Jude as well, because I know they listen every week to us on here, and they listen to all your shows. So shout out to them. And yeah, let's pray Europa League winners. Let's manifest it, man. Got to start here now.
Tony and Jude, thank you for your support. We really appreciate it. Fingers crossed. We're talking about Spurs bringing a trophy home on, come the end of the season, which I know for many out there has been a tricky one. I want to say a massive thank you to wonderful Ashmatic over at the Spurs Kings. Ash, we'll see you very, very soon, my man. Make sure you're checking Spurs Kings TV out for all the latest great stuff they're doing over there. Billie T, Spurs' ex-king across X. We love him so much. And the wonderful George Achillea. George, thank you so much as always. George Achillea across the socials. There you go. Spurs are back in Europa League action this coming Thursday. Can we secure a first leg advantage going into a crucial second leg for Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham, where Ange has been a bit quiet on the radar on this show? It's all about the players and those that are half fit and aren't fit and those that could be leaving and maybe not leaving. But focus will switch back to Ange and his Tottenham team, from the wonderful Billie T, from the superb George Achillea, from the ever charismatic Ashmatic. We have been the last one on Spurs. Please keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on, you Spurs.